Hello everybody, I'm Nicholas, aka Tactical Wrench. This is the second log of my Combine Hunter cosplay. Last time I had split up a model of a hunter into component body parts. However, the model was split up along its mesh seams, so I couldn't create foam patterns from all the models as they were. For example, the main body is going to be built out of EVA foam and will be covered in fabric. As it is now, it wouldn't have any structural integrity. There's also a lot of geometry on it that I really don't need to build with the foam, and the geometry that is there is pretty elaborate. The easiest solution is to retopologize the model. For those of you who don't know, retopology is essentially rebuilding the surface of a 3D model from the ground up. I had never retopologized anything before, so I first had to look up how to do this. I found a highly viewed and highly praised video that had a lot of good tips, but it turned out that the plugins shown in it don't work the same way anymore. I found another video by Cosplay that was a little more basic, but figuring out all the features was a bit frustrating because Blender's layout has completely changed since this video was uploaded. I was eventually able to find the features I needed, so I deleted half of the original model, or as close as I could get to half, and began to manually extrude planes around the geometry. Shortly thereafter, I had to remove the planes because I hadn't made them in a new model set. Luckily, I hadn't gotten very far. I finally began building a mesh that snapped the base model properly, and it went pretty well. However, I quickly found out vertices weren't snapping correctly. I tried to figure out how to let them without turning off face protection, but I couldn't find a clear solution. So I decided to just build the mesh manually with extrusions, and then merge the surfaces afterwards. This is obviously a terrible way to retopologize, but I'm really new at Blender, guys. I was grateful to be making progress. This process did have a lot of drawbacks. I would routinely extrude something that I did not mean to, and it would result in several instances of tiny geometry I had to delete. Some of these I didn't notice until very late in the process. I retopped the upper eye socket and then worked my way outwards, then down. I then made the lower eye socket and fleshed out the bottom. I built around the entirety of the main model, simplifying where I thought necessary and matching the original geometry as best as I could. I added some loop cuts where I thought they would help, and tried cleaning up the mesh a bit with the smooth tool. I then turned off the shrink wrap modifier, as well as the project snap option, so I could add parts of the retopology mesh that weren't in the original model. First I cleaned up the bottom, then I bridged the front and rear of the model together. I plan to affix the leg supports to this part. I built up the top of this concave section so there's more surface area to attach the carapace to, and finally I adjusted the eye sockets and connected them. It lines up pretty well with the original. Some of you may have noticed that I didn't retopologize all of the details. This is because some features, like this bulge between the eyes, will be easier to replicate using the fabric covering the frame. I also left out a large portion of the rear, as this is where I will enter the costume. Now all I need to do is export the new mesh as an STL, make a note that I'm constructing it with solid materials, and I can import it right into Pepakura to make patterns with. It still has to be scaled correctly though. I am happy to have learned about retopology, but I don't think I will do it for very many other body parts. Most of them are closed meshes that will take to foam fairly easily. The only exception may be the carapace, which is symmetrical but has a zigzag artifact on the STL that may make it harder to split in half. Hopefully with my base knowledge from the body, I can learn to work more efficiently. Thank you for watching. I hope to have another update out soon.